Hi. Stronger Than War was written in 2010. And so it's a time travel story, of course, because I love them. And unfortunately, because it was at the beginning of my career, it was not written exactly with the greatest amount of care. And if you go on to Amazon at the moment and read the reviews, there's a lot of people liked the story, but it got scathing reviews for because it was not written very well, unfortunately. Luckily, I have since rewritten it several times and cleaned it up and got rid of all the terrible grammatical errors and spelling mistakes. So it's a much improved version now. I've just listened to the AI version that you hopefully are going to listen to. And you know what? It's made me rather sad listening to it, because there's something about these two AI speaking voices that seems to make it sound an awful lot better than what it actually is. I'm at a loss to know exactly what it is at the moment. I mean, everything that they talk about is actually in the book, but they seem to make it perhaps more profound than what it actually is. It's a mystery to me, but it is one of my most favourite books, and I'm very proud of it. There you go. That's all I have to say about it. 15 years ago, but I think it's a good read and a good listen, I suppose. It's one of those books that I think would make a decent film.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a whole mountain of details, notes, records, and just distill it all down so you can sound impossibly well informed.
And today we are tumbling down one of the most fascinating and, I think, structurally difficult rabbit holes we've ever really encountered.
It's a stack of sources that detail this one specific moment in 1972 London where, where rational physics just seems to collapse.
That's right. So our mission today is a bit of a high-stakes investigation. We're unpacking the story of a Dr. Lawrence De Havilland, a man who is wealthy, extremely conventional, a highly rational surgeon.
And his meticulously structured world is just. It's utterly destroyed by the discovery of this injured, mysterious woman.
A woman found on the Thames embankment. And we have to meticulously analyze all the evidence that's presented in the narrative to figure out the fundamental nature of this woman, Jennifer Compton-Hepburn.
Right, so what is she? Is she suffering from some kind of massive, historically precise delusion?
Or is she, against all scientific law, a time traveler displaced from 1941? It's the ultimate conflict.
It really is. It's the rigid authority of, post-war British professionalism versus sheer, unadulterated temporal impossibility.
On one side, you have Dr. Lawrence De Havilland. He is the absolute epitome of 1972, success tall, handsome, precise, a surgeon at Bart's, living in this inherited 18th century home.
And he's the fastidious owner of a bright red Series 1 E-type Jaguar. Can't forget the car.
You can't. And on the other side, there's Jennifer Compton-Hepburn. She's found on a warm September evening, choking, bloodied.
And wearing a heavy, totally anachronistic 1940s Women's Royal Naval Service WRNS uniform.
And covered in this curious scattering of chalk dust. We are essentially watching a battle waged between two incompatible realities.
Yeah, and it forces Lawrence to choose between his career, his sanity, and this sudden, undeniable, and deeply disruptive love.
The core conflict, really, the thing driving everything, is the choice Lawrence has to face. Does he accept the easy, logical, medical answer?
Which would be a psychiatric case destined for institutionalization.
Or does he embrace a truth that implies the world he trusts just? It doesn't operate by the rules he knows.
And critically, that commitment option involves Harrington's asylum, the same place where his own mother tragically died.
So the stakes couldn't be higher for him personally.
Okay, let's get into it. Part 1. The Friday Night Collision, September 1972.
We really need to spend some time setting the scene here, because Lawrence's world is so crucial to understanding the seismic shock that Jennifer represents.
Absolutely. So it's late summer 1972. It's 6:15 on a Friday evening. Lawrence is driving his Series 1 E-Type along the Thames embankment.
Let's unpack that a bit. Lawrence De Havilland, the man in the machine.
Yeah, the car choice, the red E-Type, it's a perfect symbol, isn't it? It was, in its day, one of the fastest production cars in the world.
But he's not a speed demon. The sources are very, very clear on this. He inherited it from his father, and while he cherishes it, he never drives it excessively.
It's about control.
Exactly. The control he exerts over that magnificent machine mirrors the precise authority he insists on having over his own life, his surgery, his emotions. He's the master of measured responses.
And he's driving west, probably heading home to Chain Walk, enjoying a pipe, listening to Brahms.
Brahms Piano Concerto No. 1 on a quadraphonic 8-track cartridge.
I love that detail. The Brahms, the classical structure, the 8-track, it speaks of a man who values order, quality, a fixed rhythm. He deals in predictable outcomes.
Yeah, his home, Chain Walk, is steeped in that fixed reality. An 18th century structure. It carries the weight of his past.
He inherited it after his father died in a sudden car accident, and it's so ironic, not in the E-Type, but in a courtesy car in 1961.
And that accident was the catalyst. It's what started his mother's descent into dementia. She died in Harrington's asylum in 1967.
So this background it's not decorative, it's the ticking emotional time bomb. Lawrence sees asylums not as places of healing, but as places of death and loss.
So you have this hyper-ordered man, and the sources say he's slightly annoyed by a bit of bird dropping on his pristine red paint. And as he's pulling in, that order is just shattered.
He notices a figure, just a singular, hazy figure sitting alone on a wooden bench across the road, shadowed by these tall trees.
And what's fascinating is his immediate, non-rational reaction. He feels what the sources describe as an uncommon sensation.
Like witnessing a shadow or something that had once existed. It's the first hint that this isn't just an accident, it's something else.
His rational mind hasn't processed the anomaly yet,
Yeah.
but his intuition is just screaming.
So he goes inside, he does the social niceties with Miss Cole, his faithful housekeeper, and then 30 minutes later he's drawn back to the window.
And the figure hasn't moved an inch. He is, and I quote, hypnotized by her stillness. He has to actually get his binoculars to get a clearer view.
And this closer look, this is where the first undeniable historical dissonance comes in.
Yeah, he notes she's wearing a heavy black overcoat with white markings, which is just bizarre, considering how warm it is for a late September evening.
She looks young, though, no older than 20. He spots the strange dark cap and, crucially, that light-colored strap across her shoulder.
That strap, it's later confirmed to be for a gas respirator case, an item that was absolutely mandatory for London civilians in 1941, but utterly redundant and strange in 1972.
She isn't just dressed oddly, she's dressed defensively for a war that ended 27 years ago.
So when he finally takes his yellow Labrador, Sandy, out for his routine walk, he approaches her directly.
And this is where the mystery deepens into genuine concern and, physical anomaly.
Her posture's all wrong. She's sitting with an unnaturally straight back.
Yeah.
She's not sleeping. Her complexion is sallow, her lips are tight, and she has a diagonal cut on her chin and a swollen cheek.
But the detail that really stuck out to me, and we have to emphasize this, is the chalk dust. There is chalk dust scattered all through her dark hair, on her coat, on her long skirt. And we know later that Blackfriars Bridge and the surrounding areas were just decimated during the Blitz.
The chalk suggests she has just come from a collapse, from a rubble pile, from a recent violent destruction.
And we absolutely cannot ignore Sandy's reaction.
No. Sandy is the instinctual creature in this scene. Lawrence notes, the dog begins this unprecedented low growl. Its hackles rise.
So the dog perceives this motionless woman not just as strange, but as a threat. or a profound disruption of some kind. Lawrence actually has to secure the lead tightly.
And when Jennifer finally reacts to the dog's growl, her fear is immediate and visceral. Her bottom lip is trembling. She's pressing her hands together so tightly her knuckles are white.
And that's when Lawrence sees the blood mixing with her hair, confirming she's badly injured, and then she starts choking and shaking violently.
And now up close, her attire just confirms the 1940s aesthetic. A dark uniform, heavy, sensible black shoes, and this dark, thick hosiery that's already ragged and lattered.
And the makeup. It's pure wartime camouflage. Heavy, creamy foundation, unnaturally round red lips like a wide gash, and these pencil-sharp eyebrows. It's an attempt to maintain a facade of composure under immense stress, but it's entirely outdated in the 1970s.
But Lawrence is a surgeon. He's compelled by his training to respond to trauma, no matter how strange the patient is. And this discovery forces the very first crack in his orderly life.
Which brings us to part 2, the medical assessment, delusion, and the first seeds of doubt.
So Lawrence brings Jennifer back to the house, and immediately the domestic sphere takes over. This is where Miss Cole, the housekeeper, just shines.
She's described as a former WWI nurse, experienced and practical, and she takes immediate, competent control. She almost eclipses the surgeon himself.
She's the antidote to panic, isn't she? She gets the coat and hat off. She tries to give Jennifer tea, who is way too shaky to hold the cup, and she instantly diagnoses the trickle of blood from Jennifer's ear as a perforated eardrum.
And that's a key detail. It explains why Jennifer is mute at first and struggling with her balance and hearing. This temporary deafness contributes directly to the initial misunderstanding of her whole situation.
Lawrence calls his family doctor, Dr. Thomas Miles, who shows up later that Saturday evening. And Miles is described very pointedly, unfit, smoking these long brown cigarettes. He represents the established, maybe slightly jaded medical bureaucracy.
And what's his take?
He examines Jennifer, confirms a seriously disturbed condition, expensive wounds, a large mark on her abdomen, and he just sedates her immediately.
Right. Get the patient quiet.
Dr. Miles is a man of pure logic, and he quickly settles on the easiest, most plausible explanation.
Yeah.
He finds the WRNS uniform, the ID card, and he just dismisses it all as a poor joke.
And Jennifer had mumbled something about an explosion in lights.
She did, and that's all Miles needs to develop his immediate delusion theory. She suffered a concussion, probably a hit and run, and now she believes she's living during the Second World War.
From a purely scientific perspective in 1972, you can see why he'd go there. It's the most rational path.
Absolutely. The uniform is a costume. The speech is post-concussive delusion. Miles is already preparing the route for commitment.
But even he notices something peculiar, which the script highlights brilliantly as the first true seed of doubt.
Yes, the underwear detail.
Let's talk about that. Dr. Miles notes, just in passing, that the garments she's wearing underneath are authentic, non-modern underthings. Not the sort of garments modern girls wear.
And this is a significant, if small, detail. If she were a fraud or just delusional and dressed up for a joke, why the historically accurate, uncomfortable, and frankly hard-to-source undergarments, it doesn't quite fit.
And then Jennifer wakes up on Saturday morning. She's a bit more coherent.
Right. She confirms the perforated eardrum to Miss Cole, but then immediately introduces the tom dislocation. She asks, "What rate is this?"
She's genuinely alarmed by the sheer visibility of the house, the lack of anti-blast tape on the windows, no blackout provisions.
For her, these items were life-or-death necessities in 1941. Their absence in 1972 is terrifying to her. It's a sign that something is profoundly wrong with the world.
So she confronts Lawrence. She remembers the event with perfect clarity.
She does. High explosives near Blackfriars Bridge passing out. She's confused by his bright red E-type, which is so obviously a post-war luxury item.
And the wailing sound she heard, which Lawrence figures was probably an ambulance or a police siren.
But she perceived it as an air raid warning. Of course she did.
So Lawrence, he's still clinging to his scientific control. He insists she's suffering from a difficult delusion caused by a concussion, maybe from a collision.
But she just counters with this pure, unshakable certainty. It's 1941, and suddenly you have these two competing, mutually exclusive historical anchors.
So to resolve this, Dr. Miles does the logical thing. He proceeds with a rational investigation. He tries to contact her London address, 30 Danvers Street, and her supposed doctor, a Dr. Reed.
And both of them turn out to be dead ends, or at least that's what Miles initially assumes.
This is where the source material drops one of the most stunning narrative coincidences or proofs of the entire story.
It's unbelievable. Dr. Miles goes to 30 Danvers Street, and he speaks to the current resident, a 93-year-old man named Mr. Buttons.
And Mr. Buttons confirms.
He confirms that he bought the house in 1944 from a woman named Georgina, whose younger sister, named Jennifer, died in a bombing raid near Blackfriars Bridge in the early part of the war.
Hold on. Let's just pause on that for a second. This isn't just a coincidence. It's a direct historical alignment.
Exactly.
Jennifer, who claims to be from 1941, whose delusion involves a bombing at Blackfriars, names an address where a woman named Jennifer actually died in a bombing at that exact location and time.
Mm-hmm.
So how on earth does Dr. Miles interpret this? This completely impossible convergence of facts.
He dismisses it.
He
sticks firmly to the delusion theory. He believes the address and doctor are fabricated. He decides the similarities are just. Well, the result of Jennifer having some prior knowledge of historical events. Maybe she gleaned it from books or, worse, from psychiatric files.
So he just explains it away.
He does. He concludes his investigation and starts preparing the commitment papers for Harrington's asylum.
But Lawrence has that personal history with Harrington's. The trauma of his mother dying there, trapped by a disease no one understood. He resists the medical verdict. He senses something is profoundly different about Jennifer.
And this resistance is what allows him to introduce the definitive physical evidence, the evidence that just destroys the simple delusion theory.
The penterithrol.
This is the moment science hits a brick wall. Lawrence reveals a fact known only to him, the surgeon who occasionally treats victims of modern explosives. He smelled penterithrol on Jennifer's coat.
Okay, we have to explain this for everyone. Penterithrol is an explosive. It's a very powerful nitro compound, famously used in World War II.
Right, specifically developed by the Nazis and used as a major component of high explosive shells, especially during the Blitz.
So Lawrence's specialized knowledge lets him differentiate the residue, and critically, he knows this archaic WWI explosive is not used by contemporary terrorist organizations in 1972.
No, the IRA, for instance, they're using more modern, accessible explosives.
Yeah.
Things based on fertilizer or, increasingly, Semtex. Not this stuff.
So let's just lay this out. You have a woman claiming to be from 1941.
Check.
Claiming to have been bombed near Blackfriars.
Check.
Who smells exactly like a 1940s Nazi high explosive, which is completely obsolete in 1972.
Yeah.
And whose supposed death location and time were just confirmed by a 93-year-old resident. The rational explanation has utterly crumbled.
It's gone. This specific chemical evidence forces Lawrence, the man of rigid logic, to recognize that the cause of Jennifer's trauma is not a modern car accident. It's an explosion tethered to the very war she claims to be from.
The impossible is now the most plausible explanation.
Which brings us to part 3. The identity revealed and the photographic proof.
Now that the evidence has shifted from psychological to physical, Lawrence needs to test Jennifer's knowledge against the reality of 1972.
So they take this group trip, Lawrence, his sister Amelia, Dr. Miles, Miss Cole, and Jennifer to 30 Danvers Street.
And the physical environment shock for Jennifer must have been immense.
It was. She remembers the street as well-maintained, orderly. Now she's seeing decline. Unkempt homes, scribbling on the walls, fly posting, broken glass. She calls it almost a slum.
So this degradation confirms for her what the E-type and the lack of blackouts only suggested. She has traveled forward in time, and her past is gone.
And during this period, she clarifies her background. Her family home was Gridley Manor in Buckinghamshire. She'd come to London for work as a WRNS cipher officer, while her sister Georgina worked for the Red Cross.
And every single detail she provides is historically consistent with 1941.
It is. But the trip immediately raises red flags in the 1972 context.
How so?
Georgina Compton-Hepburn, who is the actual 1972 owner of Gridley Manor and Jennifer's sister, reports Lawrence and Jennifer to the police for attempted trespassing after they drove out there.
Of course she does. So a Detective Sergeant Lewis arrives on Monday, and Lawrence is forced into this humiliating position.
He has to pretend he believes the delusion theory that he now privately doubts.
But Jennifer, she provides a bombshell to the police. Her birth date.
July 31st, 1911.
Which means if she were telling the truth, she would be 61 years old.
Right, despite looking physically closer to 30. This introduces the profound physical paradox of temporal displacement. She appears to have aged only slightly, or maybe not at all, over the 3 decades she missed.
And the police, they can't reconcile the youthful appearance with the claimed age, so they just file the whole incident under eccentric socialites.
Basically. But this is where it gets really fascinating. The connection between Lawrence and Jennifer's doomed past life.
She confesses, doesn't she? Driven by the uncertainty of her own survival, she confesses the heartbreak that defined her life in 1941.
She was in love with 2 airmen.
The first was David, a Spitfire pilot. He died immediately after she finally worked up the courage to say, "I love you."
Just devastating. And then there was John Bobby Harris, a Bomber Command pilot. She was so terrified of this curse that she refused to tell Bobby she loved him before he also died.
That silence, that regret became the defining trauma of her entire life.
And this tragic narrative of doomed love immediately triggers an intensely personal, non-rational response in Lawrence.
He reveals a nightmare he's been having, a horrific, hyper-realistic nightmare.
He was a bomber pilot being shot down crashing into a church. But the one detail he focuses on, the one that's stuck with him, is this specific obscure nickname of his co-pilot. Bragger. And Jennifer instantly supplies the full name of that co-pilot. Peter White, nicknamed Bragger.
And this detail is the absolute key. This is what unlocks Lawrence's skepticism completely.
There's no way he could have known that name. It didn't come from research. It came from a subconscious, visceral memory shared across 31 years and perhaps across lifetimes.
So Lawrence, the scientist, is now facing the idea that he might actually be the reincarnation of Bobby Harris.
It moves the narrative past a mere time travel incident into one of destiny and reincarnation. But the physical proof is still to come.
Separately, Lawrence and Amelia receive the visual evidence that cements this bond.
First, Lawrence gets a photo of John Bobby Harris, the dead airman lover.
And the comparison is staggering. Lawrence is an exact copy of the deceased pilot.
The physical evidence now aligns perfectly with the subconscious dream knowledge and the emotional pull. He is Bobby, returned, even if he's still Lawrence the surgeon.
And then his sister Amelia, despite her initial skepticism, she does her own deep dive into the archives.
At the London School of Economics, she finds a 1940 WRNS photo of Jennifer Compton. It's an identical appearance, age 30, posing with friends.
So it confirms her identity. The woman in Lawrence's house is historically real, existed in 1941, and looks the same 30 years later.
So if we just synthesize this mountain of evidence, you have the archaic penerythritol residue.
You have the confirmation from Mr. Buttons that a Jennifer died in that exact place and time.
You have Lawrence's physical reincarnation as Bobby Harris.
The shared, detailed dream about Bragger.
And finally, the photographic proof of her 1940 identity. The conclusion is inescapable. The sheer weight of factual correlation renders the scientific, logical delusion theory utterly impossible.
He has to discard his entire scientific worldview or commit a sane woman to a hell he knows intimately.
Which brings us to part 4, confronting the past, the meeting with Georgina.
So this overwhelming evidence, it forces a dramatic personal crisis for Lawrence. The sources make it clear that his sister Amelia, who's been observing his intense focus on Jennifer, she just accuses him directly.
She says he's in love with her.
And Lawrence can't deny it anymore. His feelings for Jennifer are profound, immediate, and utterly disruptive to his ordered life.
And he contrasts this genuine emotional connection with his relationship with his fiancée, Pamela. He realizes that his physical affection for Pamela felt entirely financially transactional.
Right. And that she was only with him for social advancement.
Exactly. This realization requires action. Lawrence decides he has to break off his engagement. He's effectively choosing the impossible, historically complex woman over his secure, conventional future.
But before he faces that social ruin, he needs to secure Jennifer's emotional well-being by confirming the truth with her sister.
He sets up the ultimate test of reality. A family reunion between Jennifer and her aged sister, Georgina Compton-Hepburn, the 1972 owner of Gridley Manor.
And Georgina is now frail, relying on a cane, suffering from the early stages of the same condition that plagued their mother.
The initial reaction when they meet is just. It's devastating. Jennifer sees her vibrant sister from 1941 now reduced by 30 years of time, and she cries out, "You are so old."
And Georgina, looking at the vibrant young version of the sister she buried, is utterly stunned. She says, "She looks like her, it's uncanny."
But Georgina is cautious. She performs a definitive verbal test. She dives into intensely private family memories that no outsider could possibly know.
The nickname Smelly G, their father's mare, Harley, and a specific minor fire that happened at Christmas in 1931.
And the sources highlight the power of these details. Jennifer answers them immediately and correctly. The specificity, especially Smelly G, a nickname reserved only for her sister, it shatters Georgina's remaining skepticism. This is her sister, returned.
Georgina is overwhelmed, and she confirms the final tragic piece of the puzzle. She saw Jennifer's body in the coffin in 1941. She personally oversaw the burial.
She's been living with the trauma of her sister's death and had even kept Jennifer's childhood bedroom sealed as a shrine ever since.
And this leads us right to the heart of the temporal problem. Dr. Miles, who's finally convinced by the combination of all this evidence, the chemical, the historical record, the sister's testimony, he proposes this stunning temporal hypothesis.
And the hypothesis is chilling. Jennifer must have arrived in 1972 before her original death in 1941. Her body was found, identified, and buried back in 1941, but the real Jennifer was displaced into the future at the moment of the explosion.
Okay, let's just dedicate a moment to the implication of that. If the body found in 1941 was Jennifer, and the Jennifer standing in the room now is displaced, that means the universe has an open loop.
And the timeline requires closing?
Lawrence voices the horrific realization that implies that she is going to return, to go back to die, to then be found. God, my head hurts thinking about it.
The choice isn't whether Jennifer is a time traveler anymore. The choice is whether Lawrence can help her survive a fate that has already been recorded in history.
And Jennifer's plea is so direct and heartbreaking. I don't want to go back and die, Lawrence. She's facing her own documented demise.
The combined shock, learning she's officially dead, seeing her sister frail and ill, and seeing the total change and loss of her world. Everything I ever knew is gone or changed or vastly different. It's too much.
She flees the conservatory, completely overwhelmed.
And this leads to the next critical intervention. Jennifer is later found by Amelia on Albert Bridge.
Attempting suicide.
Yes. Believing that institutionalization at Harrington's is her only alternative to facing the terror of returning to die, she tries to end it all.
And Amelia, who we've seen as this cold, pragmatic character, she performs a totally unexpected act of genuine compassion.
She intervenes. She saves Jennifer, promising to protect her from Harrington's. This moment of grace shows that Amelia is also fundamentally changed by Jennifer's truth. She's willing to step outside her rigid social parameters to defend a person in genuine distress.
It's a turning point for the entire household.
It is. Which leads us to part 5, Lawrence's new love and the final moments.
The emotional reality has now completely overtaken the professional facade. Lawrence, having chosen Jennifer, has to face the immediate consequences.
He and Jennifer, having finally succumbed to their mutual impossible attraction, are discovered the next morning in Lawrence's room.
By an enraged Pamela.
The confrontation is loud, immediate, and utterly predictable. Pamela, who defined their relationship by social and financial terms, is just furious at the betrayal and the loss of her future security.
The sources depict her screaming, "You whore!" before instantly breaking the engagement and throwing the ring at him.
Lawrence accepts his fate calmly. He knows he's lost his secure future and will now have to deal with the fallout, including facing Pamela's powerful father. But the choice is made. He is committed to Jennifer, whatever the cost.
So Lawrence is now seeking closure for Jennifer. He drives her back to Gridley Manor.
And Georgina, despite her illness, shows them Jennifer's untouched, sealed bedroom. It's a moldy, dusty shrine sealed since 1941. This act provides final, definitive proof that Jennifer couldn't have researched her past life. The details came from somewhere else.
But the room offers no comfort. Jennifer, looking at the moldy remnants of her past, she makes this profound decision. It's empty of memories and full of ones that have long gone. There's nothing here for me.
Her home is truly gone. Her only anchor is Lawrence in 1972.
Lawrence understands this. He drives Jennifer back to the source of the paradox, the spot where she was found, near Hamilton House and Blackfriars Bridge.
And as they sit there in the E-type, Lawrence experiences a new, incredibly powerful vision.
He is Bobby. He's flying with Bragger, talking about the mundane details of getting leave.
And Jennifer witnesses this shift in his expression. She realizes it's a shared memory or a shared vision, confirming their bond not just in love, but across the boundaries of death and time. The reincarnation is undeniable.
So Lawrence pulls the car over right next to the bench where he first saw her, the initial point of collision between 1941 and 1972.
And it's here, at the epicenter of the impossible, that he finally breaks his own rigid emotional control and just confesses.
He says, "Because I love you, Jennifer, for no other reason. I've been a fool and ought to have admitted it from the beginning." He acknowledges the futility of his previous conventional life and accepts the impossible truth of her existence.
And Jennifer reciprocates. She finally overcomes her deepest trauma, the fear that expressing love will doom the recipient, as it did David and Bobby before him.
She says, "I love you, I love you, I love you. There, I've said it, and no damn more is going to take you away from me."
This moment is the climax of the entire narrative. She chooses survival and love over the fear of fulfilling her historical destiny.
So the sources conclude with their new, tenuous plan. Jennifer will live with Lawrence at Cheyne Walk.
But in her own room, a requirement insisted upon by Miss Cole, who, despite supporting the relationship, still adheres to the strict social conventions of 1972 London.
Of course.
And Lawrence, the highly conventional, rational surgeon, will now use his university connections not to commit her, but to research the possibility of temporal displacement incidents. He's seeking a rational framework for an entirely impossible situation.
He has fundamentally changed. He found a sense of peace and meaning with Jennifer that his conventional life and his financially driven fiancé could never provide. He chose the impossible truth of love over the safe, logical reality.
So that's where we're left.
Okay, let's wrap this up. This deep dive leaves us with a staggering body of evidence that just systematically dismantled the scientific explanation.
Right. You have the unexplained chemical signature, the pentaerythritol. You have the perfect historical record alignment, the Buttons family confirming her death location and time.
The physical and subconscious link Lawrence being Bobby Harris in that bragger dream. And of course, the photographic proof of her 1940 identity.
Lawrence, the man whose life was built on predictable precision, ultimately recognized that the correlation of all these impossible facts was statistically more probable than the simple psychiatric diagnosis.
He chose intuition, commitment, and love.
And the sources end with them attempting to carve out a life together, challenging the very fabric of time. But the logic of the situation, as Dr. Miles chillingly pointed out, implies an open time loop.
Let's go back to that. Jennifer was displaced in 1972 precisely because she regretted not telling Bobby she loved him before he died. That silence was the catalyst for the jump.
So now that she has found Lawrence, the reincarnation of Bobby, and finally expressed that profound love, thereby resolving the central emotional conflict and regret of her life, what happens next?
Has she fulfilled the purpose of her displacement?
Does the universe now enforce the original brutal timeline, correcting the paradox by forcing Jennifer to return to 1941 to be killed in that explosion?
Or can the powerful disruptive force of true love really transcend the rigid boundaries of time and destiny, allowing them to build a new life and a future that, according to history, she should never have lived to see?
That is the staggering paradox Lawrence and Jennifer face every single day.
A deeply unsettling and utterly captivating thought to end on. If you learned something new today and found yourself questioning the nature of time itself, then our mission is complete. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.